Well, I told you 30 seconds ago that this was a fun segment, and it's the people that I can complain about. But Batya's here too. She's got some complaints too. So we're going to talk about the bad takes of the week. Good Lord, is this the hardest thing in the world to try to decide? I have a Twitter feed. I don't post very much, but it's just really clogged with bad takes. Batya, did you find a bad take this week? I bet you did.
I did find a bad take.
What was the bad take?
I found a bad take. My bad take of the week is the New York Times editorial board's endorsement of Kamala Harris for president. And what I want to do is read a little bit to you guys.
This surprised you?
Because I was not surprised that they endorsed her, but the language with which they did it. So let me just read some of these segments to you of their endorsement of Kamala Harris. All right, so they start out by going, "It is hard to imagine a candidate more unworthy to serve as president of the United States than Donald Trump. He has proved himself morally unfit for an office that asks its occupant to put the good of the nation above self-interest." Wrong.
You disagree with that?
Wrong. If Donald Trump put his own interests first, he could literally drop out of the race and all of the lawfare against him and all of the attacks would disappear. His entire life right now is running for office and putting the good of the country ahead of his own personal self-interest. They go on to say, he has proved himself temperamentally unfit for a role that requires the very qualities, wisdom, honesty, empathy, courage, restraint, humility, discipline, that he most lacks. And my response to that is, because Kamala Harris is known for her wisdom, for her honesty, for her discipline, and for her humility. They go on to say most presidential elections are at their core about two different visions of America that emerge from competing policies and principles. This one, however, is about something more fundamental. It's about whether we invite into the highest office in the land a man who has revealed unmistakably that he will degrade the values, defy the norms, and dismantle the institutions that have made our country strong. Wrong. This election is about two visions of America and how to help the working class achieve the American dreams. And it is about the institutions degrading themselves. They go on to say that Kamala Harris may not be the perfect candidate for every voter, especially those who are frustrated and angry about our government's failures to fix what's broken, from our immigration system to public schools to housing costs to gun violence. Yet we urge Americans to contrast Ms. Harris's record with her opponents. Wrong. These are Kamala Harris's failures. Like, they're literally telling you,
it's an amazing statement.
Vote for Kamala Harris because you are frustrated with Kamala Harris's record. The New York Times goes on, while character is enormously important, policies matter. Many Americans remain deeply concerned about their prospects and their children's in an unstable, unforgiving world. For them, Ms. Harris is clearly the better choice. She has committed to using the power of her office to help Americans better afford the things they need, to make it easier to own a home, to support small businesses, and to help workers. Mr. Trump's economic policies are more tax cuts, which would benefit mostly the wealthy, and more tariffs, which would make prices even more unmanageable for the poor and middle class. Wrong. Kamala Harris is the reason people can't afford anything. She's literally the vice president right now and cast the deciding vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which is the main reason inflation is so high right now. And meanwhile, Trump has put out a full-fledged economic policy that is designed to help working class Americans, whether they're in the service industry, whether they are blue-collar workers, whether they're seniors. Tariffs, we know, don't impact the prices of things. Just look at the price of steel and aluminum. They talk about how Ms. Harris would work to maintain and strengthen the alliances with like-minded nations. Wrong. Trump oversaw the most peaceful 4 years in American history, and Kamala Harris is now overseeing two massive wars on two fronts. They talk about, as for immigration, a huge, largely unsolved issue, the former president continues to demonize and dehumanize immigrants, while Ms. Harris at least offers hope for a compromise. Wrong. Kamala Harris is the border czar right now. It goes on and on and on. And of course, they end by saying, unless American voters stand up to him, Mr. Trump will have the power to do profound and lasting harm to our democracy. Oh, harm to our democracy? You mean like trying to imprison a political opponent, which they accuse Donald Trump of doing, but actually Joe Biden is doing? Harming democracy, like doing a coup against a person who got 14 million votes, Joe Biden, getting rid of him because you think he's not going to win. Oh, sorry, no, that was the Democrats. And of course, when they say that Donald Trump Trump is a threat to democracy. What they mean is he is a threat to the economic interests and the power of the elites. Wrong, New York Times, as usual. What's your worst take?
You know, I gotta say that had I heard that, and I love you, Batya, and I'm happy to sit next to you, I would have said that the worst take of the week is you saying that tariffs don't increase prices, which is the most insane thing of the week that I've heard, and it came from my left. All right, my take. I was watching this live, ladies and gentlemen. I was watching CNN because in situations like what's happening in Israel and Iran, you do just have this old habit to turn on news channels and get some news. There's a bad take out there that I always expect from one Christiane Amanpour on CNN, who's the doyen of foreign policy, apparently. And this is what she had to say about Iran's missile barrage against Israel.
The Iranian foreign minister told me in New York during the United Nations that they were showing, and this is again before Friday's assassination, that they were showing restraint, and that Hezbollah was showing restraint as well, and that it wanted, to de-escalate all of this. That was the word also from the podium at the United Nations by the Iranian president. And they were saying that they are being entrapped, and they're trying to resist the notion of being trapped into this war.
I mean, it actually gets worse than that, but I don't even know. I mean, I can keep this one brief because this is my favorite. What the Iranians said on the podium at the United Nations is something we should just say, yeah, we take your word for it.
Right.
You just want, because what typically happens when people show restraint and they don't want to, quote unquote, escalate things, is they typically don't involve themselves in wars that they actually themselves didn't start. I mean, again, this is a very long war. I mean, Hezbollah was started around 1982, 1983, and as our previous guest, Elliot Ackerman, points out, the blood of hundreds of Americans on its hands, and the blood of Jews from around the world blowing up community centers in Argentina just because they're Jews there. This is what Hezbollah and Iran have done. And this idea that these are just peaceful people who are desperate to not, ratchet it up. This stuff is, I can't believe that people actually think this. I have heard this. Now, I will say one thing. Those of you out there who say, this is not our war, I get that sentiment. And that's a sentiment, by the way, I wish people have about everything. They should always think that. On the Lebanon front, I mean, this is an organization that has been at war quite vocally, and Iran too, with America since the founding of the Islamic Republic in 1979. So that, this idea that this is just a far-off conflict and that, the Israelis are escalating, I don't even, it's almost as if I just wanted to play that clip for you, ladies and gentlemen. I didn't need to say anything because what needs to be added to somebody saying that Hezbollah and Iran, they're just I really don't want to ratchet things up here. That is, well, too bad, because R.I.P. Hassan Nasrallah, because you did. You ratcheted it up, and this is what happens. Can I swear on the show? Megyn Kelly swears on the show. You fucked around and you found out. So, all right. That is our show for today. And thank you for joining us. This is our new format. We're going to be back next week in a similar situation with the teeming office behind us and Batya to my left, and in the morning when I'm a complete zombie. But we'll be back with more amazing analysis in the hottest of hot takes, Batya.
Indeed, indeed. And to make sure that you don't miss anything, subscribe right now to thefp.com.